Waters. I'm the gallery manager, curator. The show is Reginald Baylor Studio, Manufacturing Creativity. This is Mutope Johnson, here to talk about art of business. And so you can just kind of take it. Anyone who doesn't know who you are, tell them a little bit about yourself, your background, and what you're up to now and how you got there.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to thank you for the invitation. I mean, when we were sitting down talking about the opportunity that the gallery lends itself to as far as reaching a wider audience, and then part of negotiating with what artist was going to show, and so Reggie stepped up and decided to take the early part of the year to do his thing. So yeah, this is really appropriate to be able to sit here and be able to have that conversation and really just kind of piggyback off of him and Pamela Anderson. So it makes it's a good fit. So part of also what I want to do is thank all of you too, because one of the things that I like to say is that our Milwaukee community has grown to be a lot closer because of our relationships. And so, I mean, many of us go back years. I mean, we go back years. I mean, with Reggie, I mean, I had a chance to meet Reggie before he and his brother did this show entitled Two Brothers. But it was spelled differently though. I was like, who does a show called Two Brothers? And I was thinking that, okay, maybe it had some kind of, it did have kind of like a different spin to it, so it wasn't that you were just blood brothers, it was just that, it had some other kind of meaning to it as well. So even before that. So a lot of us go back many, many years. Della and Lamar and a lot of what I consider like the OGs and some of the and I don't mean that in a bad way, because the young people refer to the OGs as old geniuses. That was what Christopher said anyway, because he was ashamed to call me an OG because it's like calling me an old timer.
I think that's fitting though.
Huh? Yeah, what, old timer? Yeah, it is. It is. I got some miles on me, man. but nevertheless, the thought is that I don't get a chance to have this opportunity that often, because most of the time I'm just busy doing the work. I'm kind of a worker bee. I'm not one to really stand on the soapbox and do a lot of grandstanding. So for the most part, I like to just get to work, get busy. But I don't mind sharing with you, some of how I came into this, in the first place. So I feel like I have a pretty, checkered career, and it started out, when I was real young. So as a 9-year-old, my mother put me on the bus, and I took. As a matter of fact, it used to take me 2 buses to get from our house to the Milwaukee Art Museum. It just so happened that I got a scholarship. I don't know if you guys remember that there was a program called the CAPS program. So I don't, Reggie, be old enough? Yeah. So it was called a community arts program, and so the Milwaukee Art Museum put together kind of like a scholarship program for young kids who were art inclined. So I was really good at 2 things. I was good at art and I was good at gym. So that was what I knew. That's what I did. And so after my mom put me on the bus, she showed me really like one time how to get there, and every Saturday for probably 8 weeks, that's what I did. So I practically lived at the art museum. And so it began there. So all of my life, I've always been involved in the arts. I've never really done anything else. I thought about that on the way here, and I was thinking, wow, the only time I've ever really worked outside of my, the arts, I graduated, on my way out from graduating from college, I majored, in the fine arts. So I got a BFA in the arts. And I was counseling incoming freshmen. And because of the counseling job I had, the state found out what we were doing, and there were several, seniors that were counseling these incoming freshmen, making sure that they got what they needed, classes, what have you. And then the state recruited us to, believe it or not, become crisis counselors, and I went to Eaton, Illinois School. And that's the first time that I ever did anything outside of, the arts. While I was in college, I was doing ads, I was doing, graphic design for a lot of the businesses in Whitewater, even as small as it was. So one of the things I was able to do was form these relationships with the merchants because I was interested in graphic design, and the only way that I could get that experience was go to them and talk to them. So I was doing ad booklets and ads, and I was on the University Center Activity Board where we brought in entertainment from all over the country, and so we booked entertainment for the university, and I used to do lighting and sound for the university. But then that job came as I graduated, and I went right from graduation to, it was like to jail. That's what it was like, because, well, Ethan Allen Boys School was a school for, it was a juvenile detention center. And I was there for 2 years. And the first year I was there, I worked as a crisis counselor with incoming students. We didn't call them inmates, we didn't call them prisoners. We called them residents or students, because part of their time that they spent there, they had to go to class. And so in between classes, and when you went from class, you go to lockup, and literally they lock you up. And so they had an intake center, and I worked at the intake center for a while, and then from there, then we would go out to the cottages, and then I would counsel the young men at the cottages, and then they found out that I was pretty good at it, so that was the first time I got a chance to use art as a tool, and I did it as art therapy. And the young guys was listening to me as I would do things like portraits or cartoons or something like that, and they were, oh, dude, you got some skills. And then they put me in maximum security. I was going to jail every day. It was like they were locking the door behind me, the gates behind me as I went in, and then it was one-on-ones with probably some of the toughest juveniles that the state produced. And it's a tough feeling to walk into a single room where, all they had was socks, oversized overalls, t-shirt, and their underwear. Bed was bolted to the floor, no towels, no pencils. We brought pencils in, they were really just shortless, so they couldn't use them as weapons. They had plastic forks, they put their food through the door. It was that kind of place. And then I used art to kind of reach them. And so some of the guys that I was able to, paint their portrait, I could talk to them and ask them questions that, were personal if they decide to open up, and art really helped open them up. So I found a way to incorporate it, even though it wasn't part of my job. Then after that, I couldn't do it anymore. The last time I had that experience, I left there going to a seminar, or at least, because we had these state statutes that we had to learn every time there were juvenile codes that came up. I went to a place called, Oak Hill, which is a release center for adults. And, the adults coming from Oshkosh or Green Bay after they've done their time, and then they slowly release them back into the population. So I went there for a seminar. And to go to show you where my mindset was, I got up that morning, I put on like a white shirt, khaki pants, baseball cap, tennis shoes, didn't think anything about it, grabbed my briefcase, went there. And as they would have it, we would stand in the lunch line, the same line where all the residents would be. And I heard this brother call on my name from behind, like, Johnson, what's up, man? Johnson, what you doing in here? I'm thinking, who is that? Turned around and, man, what you in here for? That's what he said. Man, what you in here for? Man, I just got out the hole, man. I said, I'm here for a meeting. My meeting is over at 3 o'clock. But it was this guy that I went to school with, I won't tell you his name, but and that was when I realized, I gotta get out of this. I can't do this no more. So then I focused primarily on the arts. And so I've always worked in the arts. So I started out as a graphic designer, worked as a graphic designer with men in business, different sizes. I went from, used to be a company downtown that was the sister company to National Geographic. So I worked on a series of 5 different magazines. And that was my first job. I come from that old school of key line paste up, where you take the words and you put them all, it's kind of like set and type. And we had to do, all our ads that way. dark room and develop, these vloxes, we call them vloxes, all it really was pastable images, whether it was taken from photography or illustration, and then you use, rubber cement, you put it all together, and then you put it all together in a format that for newspaper, magazine, and tabloids, and so we worked at a place that had really, really large web presses. In fact, where I worked was in a place that was bigger than this. The presses ran from, the front door. By the time it came off the line here, we had full-blown 4-color newspapers, and I did everything from drive a truck to design ads to cut paper to you name it. I learned everything about publishing during that time. So the only thing I didn't do was write the stuff. So I did that for a while, and and then the work that I was doing got the attention of different ad agencies. So I started. I took this job with Milwaukee County as a senior graphic illustrator, and so I did that for 10 years. I don't think Della and I crossed paths then, but I think we were there at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I did that for 10 years, and got bored because all of my friends were actually doing much better than I was. They were working in private industry and government was slow. And I'll go to the DMV and try to get something done. Go good and get your ID and see what happens. Take you all day. So it got slow, and I was getting bored with this. I put in 10 years I was vested, so that went from there, and then I went into private industry and worked as an art director, for a number of years, and that led me all the way to the larger agencies, marketing firms. Ultimately, I ended up a creative director. So I'm kind of condensing some of the experience down, but the thought behind that path really kind of put me on the path of the business context. So, really looking at what Reggie is doing is something that was really just par for the course. You did that, and the cost of doing business was having a state of readiness in order to be able to achieve just being connected to the art world. I really did have I had a parallel life. I didn't want to be the type of artist who sold my work to the very agency that I work for because they wanted it for nothing. And the one thing about being in the advertising marketing business is the fact that you don't put your name on anything. You do it for clients, and you produce the work. Sometimes it's a teamwork effort. You got designers, you got production people, you got account executives, you got clients, you got photographers. So I had budgets. I had some pretty good sized budgets by the time I got to the larger agencies. And then as a creative director, I worked for primarily Fortune 500 companies. I had budgets that were $300,000, $400,000. I could take an entire team with me. I could take my photographer. If we were doing film, we would go and I had a scout go out to locations, and then we show up, and then we approve it, sign off on it, and then the whole crew came in with trucks and wardrobe and models, and I remember we flew to Phoenix for 11 days, and we were filming in 3 cities. So to be able to have the budgets to come along with it, and then after you did with all the filming, then you come back and then you put it all together, you do the editing and the sweetening, and then it runs on television. You buy the ads, ad space. So for me, it was all that experience really kind of led up to my being able to form systems, and the systems that I had was directly in line with my visual arts career. So my not selling my work or giving my work away to the very agency that I work for, I kind of did one thing. It was, I used the work that I did as a fine artist to inform the graphic design stuff that I was doing for my clients, but it was theirs. Okay, so the only time we got recognition is if we went to the award shows. I don't know if many of you heard of the Addy, the Addy Awards, where they go in and give you the award for, okay, best ad, best billboard campaign, best, But I learned how to pitch, I learned how to, to collaborate with people. I learned how to spend their money and not mine. I learned how to put together proposals. I had a lot of new business startups that I worked with. I cut my teeth on the very first real big project I worked on was medical. You know, I worked on minimal invasive surgery, heart surgery. That's what I did. I, you know, watched videos of people cutting into your chest, and other times, you know, doing the catheters where they put it through your veins and they run it through, and then arthroscopic surgery. The cowboy doctors would go in there and put a stent in your chest, you know, that kind of stuff. I worked on dialysis. Peritoneal dialysis, as well as, you know, just blood cleansing, filters and things like that. Also, needless systems. I worked with Cordis, Johnson & Johnson, DePuy, who did knees, surgeries, hips. I did all this stuff. It was really morbid stuff, man. It was, you know, the DePuy, we would work on. We did a program to help doctors do knee surgeries, and part of it was that they had to pass the digital tests first. We would create a CD-ROM with the instructions in it. We turned it into an animation. And then from there, once they passed the test through, going through the digital process, they signed off. And then they would do cadaver knees. So they would bring in all these cadaver knees. This is no joke. They're bringing all these cadaver knees, and all the doctors would stand there and they would do surgery on the knees using the tools from the training that we gave them on the CD-ROM. And once they were able to do that, then they could do surgery for real. So it's pretty brutal, you know. So, but you know, long hours, spent a lot of hours. You know, my wife was being really patient with me because there are times I'd be gone all day, all night. You know, because it was a tough business. But you know, I took that idea behind what business looked like behind the scenes, all the forms. I learned how to write contracts. I learned how to negotiate with my vendors who were photographers, models, makeup artists, designers. You know, so I really had the best of both worlds. And then simultaneously, I was painting on the side. In fact, when Della and I first met, before I even showed anything, I basically studied the art market for 2 years straight without doing a painting, and walked into David Barnett, turned the corner, boom, and ran right into Della, and she had her collages up for the first time. And the first time I saw her, I told her that, man, your work reminds me of Ramar Bearden. The very first time I ever met her. And so that's come to pass, has it? No, come to pass. Yeah, they kind of compared to that, the female version of Ramar Bearden. So that was kind of how I saw her, but that kind of culminated a friendship. And so part of what I really want to say without, so how am I doing? I don't want to, I'm like it's like tell Mutope is like teleradio. That's kind of what it's like. So yeah, I'm just kind of spitting right now, but that's really part of it, is that state of readiness. And so, how do we, really take advantage of one another? Because the people that we're looking for in this room right now, we're the people that we've been looking for. When you start thinking about, what happened in New York at the time during the 80s and the 90s, the community was made up of about 600 people, 600 artists and gallery owners, and what they did to really turn New York into the arts capital of the world was, they took advantage of things that people somewhat discarded, like Soho, for instance, like the whole concept behind the warehouse, loft area, was artists took spaces that nobody wanted, and they turned them around. It was kind of like you, Fatima, where you take a funeral home and turn it into a gallery space. They were doing that with, yes you did. Yeah, so yeah, it's like that's what they did. They were taking those spaces, and nobody wanted those spaces, man. Even the landlords didn't know that these artists were working there, and and if you couldn't afford a place, you crashed there too, so it became your house, became your crib. They didn't know they were living there, because half the time the landlords weren't around. It wasn't until they would come and collect their rents that they find out, damn, look what you did to the place, man. Wow, polished floors, wow. It's like, then they raise your rent. And then eventually they chase you out. And they raise the rent, and it's called gentrification, right? So that concept had the artists community decide to form co-ops. And the artists decided that, okay, we're paying these enormous amount of rents, we're gonna co-op this space, we're gonna buy the building and do it ourselves. And that's what they did. You know, it was the first time I ever heard of the concept. By the time it got to Milwaukee, there's this place called Chalet on the River. I don't know if you remember it. Reggie, you remember that?
Yeah.
Chalet on the River, you know, was a guy by the name of Baco. Do you remember that at all, Pam? Yeah, guy by the name of Baco who owned the Baco building, had that space, and he took it and turned it into a live-in space where the front of the place that you lived in, you could function as a business, and then you lived behind, even if you had to put up a petition. That was the first time that, you know, they had kind of what they called dual space grandfathered in, where it was kind of mixed-use property, it became mixed-use property. They did the same thing with Slits, but Slits, you couldn't claim taxes. They wouldn't do a mortgage. So, you know, until they finally got to the point, as a matter of fact, it was Senator Royce, I can't remember who it was, that actually owned one of those buildings, like the Slits building or something like that. They turned it into a live-in kind of warehouse space when the Slits building was just a place where they made beer, and the warehouse just sat there. They turned it into living. Now, man, it's like cream de la cream property. You know, you can't go there. We're talking 500,000, 600,000 based on the, you know, the configuration. So those things kind of like set the tone for, you know, these artist co-ops and the community that really made New York what it is. I see kind of a bit of a renaissance happening with us if we can stick together and begin to kind of, you know, stand our ground and support each other where art is concerned, because a lot of times we wonder how we're gonna make it, you know, what is our legacy gonna be, you know, who am I doing this work for? You know, when you set prices, who's buying? And Milwaukee is a very young market. You know, we don't have the New York old money. We don't have the Chicago old money. So if you got peaks and valleys when you're selling, you know, how do you price your work? You know, sometimes it's confusing the hell out of us. It's like, you know, how do I put a price on some of my work? You know, who am I selling to? You know, and it kind of changes, you know, based on location. Like you can show across town on the west side, and maybe if there's a buying audience or someone over there that's seeing your work for the first time, you know, they might be, you know, inclined to buy something from you. And then if not, then, you know, you move to maybe the east side where, okay, they might have a little bit more disposable income, and okay, people are not always buying on gallery night. They're not. They'll maybe go out gallery night, scout what they want, and then sneak in later on, and then make the purchase. So I don't really depend on gallery night too much for any sales. I'm lucky if I can sell anything on gallery night at all, because you got people that come and they'll eat up your wine and cheese, and then they'll vote. I've seen it happen. Okay, so host a party. You know, give a gallery show. People come there, eat up all your stuff.
If it doesn't snow.
Yeah, if it don't snow. And then they won't buy nothing. I'm just keeping it real. That's the way it is. And so relationships, we talk about relationship. Have a relationship with patrons, have a relationship with, you know, buyers and collectors. Even the gallery world has changed. I think when I was interested in, you know, the art world at the time, there was the Milwaukee Art Dealers Association. There was at least 10, 12 gallery owners at the time, all working in concert. You couldn't, if you were going to be represented by one gallery, you couldn't be represented by another. Conflict of interest, you couldn't sell, you know, outside of, well, you could sell outside of the art dealers membership, but you couldn't have two galleries represent you at the same time. So they didn't have a problem if you were showing at the university or showing, you know, at a museum somewhere. But if you were to shop another gallery, they wouldn't allow it. It's kind of like going backdoor on them. And so, yeah, if you were loyal to the gallery that represented you, then, you know, chances are, if they advertised and marketed you the right way, then when they did the group shows or focus on certain artists, then, you know, you were kind of like an exclusive. So that kind of over time began to just kind of go away. So now I don't even know if they have an art dealers association anymore. There's a bunch of new artists that's popping up, and, you know, they're doing their own thing, and, you know, there are new galleries around. So I went to every one of them. I did 2 years of nothing but just hit the pavement and looking at how artists framed their work, what work they were doing, if they had any particular strategies behind their work, and picking subject matter that might have resonated with people. Every city I went to, New York, California, Atlanta, I would go, and every time I went somewhere, I would look at what artists were doing there, and I learned as much as I could. And I don't think I sold my first painting until after 2 years, and then there was a marketing firm from Texas that found my work and hired me to do a poster series for AT&T. And that was the first job I did. I was like, oh, okay. All right, they were paying pretty good money, so to do a poster series for a large, utility like AT&T is like, okay, come to AT&T, buy one of our new phones. Yeah, like the rotary phone. Buy a new phone. I'm kind of telling myself, but yeah, buy a new phone and get this poster, So that kind of thing. So it was like, okay, so maybe I should, take this stuff seriously. And then all of a sudden I kind of started testing, my work because I wasn't sure of the direction. So I started testing the work. So I did this, our neighborhood had a show that they called Art and Architecture, where they picked, so many artists, and they picked something like 21 homes, and it was the idea that, I don't know if many of you know that Milwaukee has probably like the largest concentration of arts and crafts homes in the country besides maybe California. And so they were kind of showing it off. So did you know that? Yeah. And so we came to this thing where, they were selling tickets and there were 2 artists in each house. So it was probably like, I don't know, there might have been 40 of us, 2 in each house. There was 20 houses. They sold 3,000 tickets. And I did 2 paintings, I think, and I put them up in the house, and that was kind of like I had a built-in focus group. People come by, you can look at it, and they didn't know I did it, they didn't know anybody did it. And I don't know, is Ann is here? No, Ann Bear's not here. So me and Ann Bear was in the house together. So most of you know Ann Bear, you know Ann? Yeah. So Ann and I was in the house, and we were standing by looking at, people's response to the work. We heard everything. That was a really good lesson for me, and that kind of set the course for maybe I can do this. So what I want to do though is, can we kind of interject, because I don't want to do all the talking, but I want to hear from you too. So part of what I want to find out is, a lot of you personally, I know kind of what you do. I've been kind of following you and tracking you for a long time. But some of you, I don't know. I don't know what you do. And usually when I have an audience like this, it's like, who are you talking to? How do I know how meaningful the conversation can be? How can we help each other? I have my own experience, just like many of you have your own experience. And again, like that 600 people that was in New York included, Jean-Michel Basquiat, Keith Haring, we can go on and on and on and name all the people that kind of had their come up in New York at the time. That 600 people community, they went from one show to the next, and they supported each other. Anything that anybody did, they were there, whether you were performing artist, whether you were fine artist. And that was not a huge community, but they all had something in common, and the art was it. How they did business was it. What shows actually resonated in which location was it. And that's where I think we have to band together. They're doing something in Madison that I thought was unique. They're protesting. It's like, no, we're not doing this for free no more. You read that article recently? It's like, no. It's like, no, we're not doing this for free. No, you guys are charging us for art. We bring in the art and you gonna charge us a fee, and then maybe we might sell something. Right. You charge admission, and man, you got, hot dogs, and this turned into a spectacle, and then we leave with little or nothing. You know how long it takes to pack up all your work, put it in a car, go somewhere, and then sell nothing? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it makes you wanna change your mind about the business that we're in. You know, so yeah, Reggie, I don't blame you. You know, I ain't got nothing but love for you, brother. You know, throw stuff up on the wall and see if it stick. You know, and yeah, I can see why after a while you might get bored with painting. Like, yeah, you kind of think that you reached the apex of, you know, like selling. Like, how many $10,000 paintings can you sell in a market that doesn't really ain't feeling you, or just can't support it? Can't support it. You know, so what do everybody really do? I mean, those, yeah.
I've been advocating for the last couple of years. I want to work with people who are doing fundraisers and things in the holidays. And there are always, causes that I really support and feel strongly about. But I'm tired of being asked as an artist and seeing my artist friends being asked to perform and be entertainment and not be paid.
You know, one of the things when I first started, I actually started talking to other artists, and they talked to me a lot about the business, like when you were talking about fundraisers. Some of us had talked and said we're not doing it anymore, and we just said we'll try to put you in a win-win situation. We set the minimum, we set the minimum bid, we get 50%, 50% of it. And if it works on sale, you're gonna get it back. I know I did that to, one person I had pulled out a contract. The nonprofit wasn't happy, but they thought I was gonna give them the work. But I was trying to tell people, I can't get the tax deduction on it. Don't get the tax, tax, the write-off. But what actually helped me was really talking to other artists. I know when I first started Hallmark, I met the, Hallmark cards, the guy that was the head, I forgot what the black part of the company, the African American Hallmark.
Yeah.
And he wanted to use some of my images. And I actually talked to this artist, Patrick told me not to do it, because they were only gonna offer me $500, and they take the copyrights. And he said, you can put them produce the card yourself. And I had not did that conversation. Other people were looking at it, they were saying, well, it's Hallmark, but I'm like, I can sell these for $500, and they were making more than $500.
Right, because they had multi-markets and
They had
everything.
multi-markets, but I guess my whole point is, what helped me was actually talking to other professional artists, talking to other people that's in the field, I talk to curators, even some gallery owners with citizens saying, don't do,
But I think a lot of fundraisers, when I've discussed it with a few of them, I think they feel they're afraid that this could become a thing. And I think it should become a thing. And, I actually think the public would respond strongly to knowing that the artists are being supported too. I think it'd be a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, but what's interesting to me, a lot of museums, let's say Milwaukee Art Museum, okay. I used to wonder how they get these, big galleries and stuff. Doing it. Then I found out when I was at David Barnett, he said, what we did, we set the minimum bid. So let's say the piece is $10,000, okay? Let's say they set the minimum bid $5,000, $6,000, okay? And they said, we split that with the artist, and the museum only gets what they make over it. But a lot of these museum people, the patrons, the galleries are getting, they're getting paid because they're advocating. But I think a lot of people want to use that guilt trip, and we may have the fact that we're not doing only certain type, only certain type of auctions.
I also think it hurts the artists if they do one of these events and then people only go to those shows
To get
to
the work.
get the work, and they wanna get it cheaply. They're not getting, you know, what we would be getting for it. And so I also think it, to some extent, I think it can devalue an artist's work. So I just think it's irresponsible, and I think it's not, an authentic way. It's not a good practice.
So may I ask, okay, who are my painters? Who are painters? Okay, sculptors, you have any sculptors at all? Yeah, cause you kind of ventured into that, like textiles and that, you know, and so then, you know, when we talk about different genres, that's a whole nother animal. Cause one of the things that I think that I've always wrestled with is, okay, you know, which genre of art is actually becoming popular. Sometimes we get discredited because of the choice that we make. Like, you know, Ruthie, you're an abstractionist, family of abstractionists, and sometimes people frown upon abstraction. You know, they don't understand the complexities of abstraction. They don't understand that, there's certain aesthetics that people are drawn to because of, you know, the work that you do, but no, it's not. Like sitting in that house with Ann, people would walk by and they were insulting her and never even knew it. As an old lady walked by, I got that. And, you know, me and Ann looked at each other like, she didn't do it. You know, but that's the idea. They think that, okay, so, you know, so they kind of devalue it just on face value. And other times I've seen you set your prices and people will go up to it, especially when they put the art tag next to the work. They'll go up and they'll look at the prices and they'll walk away and never even consider the narrative or the amount of work that you put in. And so sometimes you'll find, like at Bar Gallery, they don't put prices up on the work, they'll put like a little number, right? And then you have to go to the book and find it. But at least what happens is they're forced to investigate the work, you know, David, right? You know? Yeah, they go in there and they'll look at the work and now they can look at the aesthetics and now they can understand. All they say is a little number, don't have a cost on it, because then they're not being judgmental. And so part of what we have to do is we have to, you know, create our own strategies, you know, so that, you know, we can do it in our own voice. And by having it in our own voice, you know, it begins to at least resonate with people. And Rhonda, you know, when I talk about that voice, you now know what I'm talking about, right? Okay, yeah, because before there are artists who haven't quite discovered that voice. They don't know what that narrative is, and they don't realize that these strategies pay off. When you're able to have a signature, you know, and when people walk up to your work, they can say, oh, okay, that's a Reggie Baylor, because I can tell that that's his style, that is his voice, that's his aesthetic. You know right away without a doubt. You know, and that goes for a number of you. You know, many of you know me, I followed you for years. Same with Amar, same thing. You know, we know Amar's stuff. You know, congratulations, by the way, Amar, on the. Very no, I'll be able to buy $15 from you later on. $20,000 will come in handy, man. Right. We gotta go to lunch, brother. Chop it up. But yeah, but part of it is relationships. So, you know, I love the relationships with the artists that I have. You know, that's how I came in tomorrow. That's how Danielle, same thing. You know, so relationships actually really make that community. You know, and so that's how we go about doing it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, relationships is how you can get other jobs. That's how you get other shows.
Right.
That's how you sell work. And
Right.
This is a business about relationships. You know, people. Evelyn was telling me, somebody was, saying about me how. Why am I in Milwaukee Magazine? Because I know.
You're right.
Yeah, but I'm just, I know. But it's really, it's relationship. I got most of my shows.
Well, this is what I say.
Relationship.
I think that a number of us probably have experienced that. I always say that, when people are hating on you, you're doing it right. That's it. You're going to have it. They wonder why are you the one? Why, it's like sometimes they don't realize, okay, maybe we're hitting our peak in you know, maybe it's our valley, you don't know, maybe it's just your time, it's your day in the sun, you know, we all have it, you know, so.
Yeah, but I've heard artists in Milwaukee, you know, recently heard artists say, well, they don't buy in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
I told you need to rechange that. They're just not buying.
You're not buying your stuff.
Right, and you need to look at why. And the reason why they're not buying, it's not that she's a bad artist, she's not out there. You know, if you're not out there showing your work, if you're not out there meeting people, you're not gonna sell any work.
Yeah.
And you can't just think, just because I do the work, you know, that people are gonna buy. You have to be out there.
You know, I was thinking today, like of all the people that kind of helped make a number of us who we probably all know a number of them. We know Polly Morris, we know Fran Serling, we know there's a bunch of people that have always been a part of that community. Had it not been for Fran, there would have been a lot of missed opportunities that, you know, would have gotten by me. I mean, you and Evelyn, and when we formed Abea back, you know, many years ago, all that collaboration, like that's how I met Willie. That's how I met you. It was through, you know, First Perspective. I mean, at the time, and I came over and I chastised, you know, did I chastise him?
Yeah, sure did.
I was like, dude, you know, like, no, I don't know why you doing what you're doing. Like, the first time I met Tim, me and Brad Bernard was doing a show at, where were we? Cardinal Stretch. And Tim kind of approached me then, wanted me to like, oh yeah, well, you know, yeah, Mutope, I know I'm this white guy, you know, who's, you know, I want to help, you know, black guys who, you know, are artists and want to help them sell. And I kind of looked at him like, dude, like, you will have some problems. Okay, you need to, first of all, come correct, and you need to put your money where your mouth is, because, you know, part of what you're doing is, you know, they're going to see you and think that you are being exploitive. And I was being real with him, you know, he didn't believe me. And I said, no, you mean well, it has nothing to do with anything, but it's perceptions. And so you have to be really honest about what it is that you're doing. If you really, really want to help, buy their stuff. Buy their work. But yeah, okay, so if you're gonna finance the organization and you're gonna back it, then do that. But, you know, I came to your house.
Yeah, we sure did.
You know, and we had a meeting, we talked about it, you know, so no, I'm being very transparent, I was being very real, and I told you, like, man, you guys can do this yourself. But if he wants to help, like, he didn't even tell you he had a publishing company, like, making print at least do calendars, put that stuff on calendar. You putting out advertising, you putting your name on that thing, I don't even know who these guys are. You're exploiting them. It wasn't until later on that he started putting your names on it, along with but he's using your image. So no. He didn't like me.
Well, I'm laughing because Tim asked me why didn't any more established African American
How come Reggie didn't do it?
How come he didn't do it? And I told
Reggie,
him,
how come you didn't do it?
I told him, you ever consider either they don't want to or they don't have to?
Yeah, there he is right there. How come you didn't do it?
Well, my first thing too is, well, what are you doing with your publishing company?
Right.
Because, you know, I'm like, okay, our relationship was because you do print.
Right.
And that you have an opportunity to get the story out.
Right.
But why are you keeping it in so much?
Right.
It wasn't really trying to get it out, so.
Right.
But again, you know, we did have a lot of conversations and discussions about, which is also intriguing, is alternative ways of doing things. Mm-hmm. So whether we agreed about what he was doing, he did think alternatively. Yeah, he was. You know, even if he was self-branding, he was coming up with another branding idea, and that is sort of community engagement branding.
It wasn't all bad. All I was doing was just trying to have, just with the way I was looking at it, was having to come correct it. It was everything to do just with business. Right. That's what it was. It was the business aspect of it, and it was also the perceptions of it. I think he meant well, absolutely, and I told him so. Okay, so it wasn't just, I didn't just beat him up for, you know, no good reason. It was justifiable, you know, and I offered the help. I also stuck with it as long as I could to offer, you know, as much as I could in the way of like helping, because he would call me on a regular basis. That's how I met Willie Weaver May. Willie Weaver, I didn't know him from Adam. Called me once he got out of prison. Right? Yeah, he called me and I had never even seen him before. Talked to him for, I mean, like several days on end until he was finally released from, I guess his release house or whatever it was, his halfway house. And then, you know, he joined him. Matter of fact, I think that's how he met him.
Yeah, we still work together.
Mhm.
And we do, just recently, we didn't do it, but we did a different show. Actually, we went to Chicago and did a show down at the Museum of Science. And got down here and we did a nice little show down here. So that was really nice.
Yeah, so that's one of those instances where, yeah, Tim did serve good. If it hadn't been for Tim, I would have never met Willie. And Willie and I talked about his, you know, his career as an artist, his business and how he was running it. So we talked contracts, we talked, you know, brand idea, how to package himself, and you know, Willie took off and did quite well for him. So I thought anyway. You know.
I've been doing pretty good. I do photography, so for those of you who don't know, I do photography, and when I took his advice, you know, one of the main things he always told me that frame, sign, and have your bio. Have your bio. So I made sure I created my bio and made sure everything that I do is framed and it's on point. And I try to I do landscape photography. So I like the panoramic style and I like them big. So that's been going really, really well. And I finally just recently got my website up and going, and now I'm in the process of trying to spread it out into the mainstream world and trying to navigate that. That's another beast in itself. So trying to put it out on Facebook and I've been doing the back end of that and trying to make sure, because it's on Facebook, that engine is as beautiful as it is, it's a monster. And trying to get that artwork out there and get it to millions of people, and cost, and trying to figure out ways of funding it. So, and I try to do little shows and help other artists to showcase their work. And then I just did another one over at Sugar Maple. Trying to have
that was last year, right?
Yeah, last week. Yeah, and that actually that went well. I sold 3 pieces, and it was funny because I was walking out the door and I didn't really make a really big piece. I was like, you know, I'm just gonna make a small little piece. I just something new. And the lady, I was sitting right there, and the lady was like, "Oh, how much is that?" And I told the person. She literally looked at me and she was like, "That's it." And I was like, "Yeah." She said, how we gonna do this? And I was like, I said, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, you know, like I keep them all. So she said, she's like, Venmo sounds really good. And I was like, okay, here. Gave her my info. Next thing you know, I have money in my account.
I tell you this story. Liz, you want to say something?
I don't want to take away from this, but I'm just curious because social media has gotten to be so huge in the last 8-10 years as far as artists' exposure and selling. There's a lot of people in this room that have certainly at least gotten exposure that way and maybe have sold. I'm just curious if that has been a big force, a small force, not relevant, you know, for.
I don't know. I'm just gonna kind of speak for me, and then I'll let Reggie go ahead and take it. I'm sorry. But for me, what I've noticed is people see your work, but then they're kind of like, you know, and I have a huge problem. I don't want anybody to just take my image and then try to share it and just do whatever.
Yes.
So I'm really particular about what images I really put out there, and I'm kind of anal about it, because I just don't want that property to be taken and it's gone and reused somewhere else. So I try to just put that one particular, and then just I want people to come to my site, and that's primarily all I'm doing, is just really just trying to get them to come to the site with just one image.
Yeah, Facebook, social media, Instagram, their systems are set up to only get you a certain amount of exposure. And you're not gonna go any further than that. And it also is designed to give you a certain number of likes, and it'll send it to people that already normally like you, just to give you just the amount of likes to do another post. Until you start paying them, and it is very expensive. Because everyone's on social media and everyone's got a painting. Everyone's got a movie, everyone's got a t-shirt, everyone's got a mask, everyone's got a hat, everyone's got beer, booze, food, an event, a car to sell, a chair to sell, on and on. It is a selling massive mess. Social media is like Walmart in your bedroom. It's just a massive mess of everything.
I can't depend on it, I don't base the number of likes on my success. I don't, for me, I've even got to the point where I stopped, really, I don't do how-tos, I've kind of stopped doing that, but, because I've had people even take my name and use my name and put it on their painting, and I got a dude that right now that won't take it down, knowing that he did it purposefully, and pisses me off. But the thing is, we are charged with, that's the other side, is we are charged with policing their own stuff, and so we've had our successes. I was going to tell you this story about you're talking about the woman that bought the piece from me. I remember we used to do the Chicago art auction, because the Chicago Southside Community Art Center, and that was a fantastic show to do. Chicago they did it right. We pull up and go to Hyde Park, and we pull up and there was Porsches, Rolls Royces. I mean, young people come in there spending $3,000, $4,000. They put our name in the book. They were passing out paddles, and people come in there and they was doing some hard bidding. They put up a big screen, and your work go up, and we did I think we did that for how many years, though? Like 3 or 4 years maybe. And you can watch the bid in $25 increments, and I think we were selling just about everything we took down there. People 18, 19 years old buying work, spending $3,000 or $4,000. They were competing. Who could buy the most? They like in a few hours they were making $60,000, $70,000. Just on bidding, and it was like, man, we need something like that in the market, but the market just would not sustain it.
Well, also, we're also talking about generational buying habits. It used to be where there was a culture that success was buying expensive paintings. The future of the next 50 years, the young kids and new entrepreneurs and new wealth don't think buying expensive paintings is interesting at all. And I'm serious, that's just it. It's actually kind of uncool to be that person, to brag that you spent a lot of money on a painting. That's just an fine art culture that served the wealthy. The new fine art culture is to serve everybody. And there's the switch on how many buying people do you have? Do you serve the 1% or do you serve the 99%?
Well, I mean that's a huge issue now. I mean that's part of where the higher echelon of the art world is kind of misunderstood. Yeah, it looks glamorous and it looked like it's something that we wouldn't mind doing for a year.
Right.
But you start thinking about career paths, and you start thinking about who's influencing the art market. And, there's articles out there, you can read it, there's, documentaries out there that really talk about, who controls the art market. And you look at the Carey, James Marshalls of the world, like a lot of the new artists who are breaking on the scene, that are selling works at six figures, but a lot of that is being controlled by the art dealers, by the, the auction houses. That's what they're doing. And so, if we are fortunate enough, we can kind of find some ground. But part of what I want to encourage us to do is really just, be better marketers, be better partners towards each other, and like maybe stage our own exhibitions, and do it in a way where we work with, folks like Danielle too, because, she'll probably be the future of curation, and begin to look at the curatorial practice and how different it is. There was a time when we would get a review if we did a show. We don't even have newspapers that can write reviews anymore. The art dealers who actually, we participated in probably one of the only art Milwaukee's that were around, where all the art dealers got together. There were some that came in from other cities. That's how I met Gerald Milberg, the dealer that represented Bearden down in North Carolina. And they came to Milwaukee. You remember that, where Sissy did the art Milwaukee over there by my head? They took this warehouse and turned it into that. All these art dealers came in here and they were like, man, we ain't never coming back here no more. Like, we didn't sell anything. It's kind of shameful, and it was organized by the Milwaukee Art Dealers Association. In fact, I think it was Elaine Erickson who organized it. She's no longer here. I think she retired. Yeah. She retired, right? She's wrapped it up. Got out of the gallery business, because she was in the same building with you guys, right up under, on the first floor, I think.
Two of the old galleries that are.
Yeah. Huh? No, it was Marshall Building. But was the Marshall Building originally I don't know. So originally, I don't know. I knew Baco had property all over the place. He had a building over on Wisconsin Avenue. He had a building, and he was real estate dude, But yeah, but that thought was, okay, we don't have that kind of buying power here. Now there's this silent buying audience that do exist. Like when I met Sissy, I went to Sissy's place during that 2-year period. I thought, okay, I had to shop a gallery that I thought that I could belong in, but I didn't really ask anybody, and it just so happened that the galleries I spent the most time at. And so one day, Sissy just walked up to me and said, are you an artist? And I said, I try to be as much as possible. And she said, well, you ought to send me your work. Send me some work. So I sent her some work, and she called me. I said, well, you definitely bring in some of your work. And I brought it in, and I walked out of there, and she was talking exclusive. And so she carried Sam Gilliam, she had, Pearlstein, Warhol, man, the list goes on. I think, Della was there, Evelyn was there. There was a bunch of people that Sissy carried. It was an eclectic collection. And it was good that when the card came out, your name was associated with that group. That doesn't happen. That's equity. That's kind of provenance. You hear that word often, provenance. And I was trying to figure, what the hell are they talking about? Providence. I thought maybe there was some Providence papers. I was looking for them. I went to the library. I went everywhere. You've heard that, right? Being a curator, that's what they talk about. So Providence really is just a record, of where the art has been, who sold it, who owned it, and that actually gave you the equity in the work that you did. So part of what I started concentrating on as an artist, I started concentrating on, reputation. I started concentrating on, having legitimacy. And then I thought, okay, I'm not just doing paintings to sell, because a lot of times my work is not the kind of work to go with your sofa. So that's sometimes it's hard to sell difficult work when your narrative says that, okay, I'll put the work out there, you might not like it, but but I'm gonna put it out there because I feel like I got something to say. No, I'm not a Ai Weiwei, I'm not gonna fall on my sword for no painting. But you got people out there who are really doing real social justice work. But that's what they're doing, they're not necessarily doing it for sale, they're doing it for a message, or they're doing it because they have a cause. I'm not an Ai Weiwei, no. And I don't mind being able to speak out. I do my part to try to get the word out of, you know, what it is I do, who I represent, and I'm trying to, you know, at least have a presence. And if that's gonna be part of my legacy, then okay, that's my legacy. My legacy is, you know, being able to do work that I think is worthy of being recognized. You know, I don't wanna just throw in the towel, you know, be this dead artist and nobody even pay any attention. So I can actually say that I've been blessed enough to be able to get enough work out there that maybe one of these days somebody might remember me. You know, in the meantime, you know, I feel like I'm in third place, and I just gotta keep working. You know, that's the way it is. You know, so I'm just as hungry as the rest of you. You know, so no, I don't stand on no soapbox, but you know, that's it. So yeah.
You're at Whitewater still.
Yeah, I teach at Whitewater.
And I know Maya, they discontinued their fine arts.
They have new studio practice,
New studio
which
practice.
is just kind of an
Well, you know,
What do students ask and sort of come in? I'm not sure. Only because I went to school because I wanted a fine art career.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted. I wanted a career.
Right.
I went to
absolutely.
school, I painted a lot, I wanted a career.
Right.
Now, I realize that I can paint, but what I can't get is the career.
There you go.
And so, you know, the art and the industry, and those are the two things. There's my expression, there's my love, and there's my passion as a painter. And I'm wondering, are there passionate youth that are going into the university systems?
Yeah.
And is the university saying, well, this is a good career choice, or this is a good training opportunity as an artist?
Yeah, here's where I am. You know, how I ended up at Whitewater in the first place. Now, again, you know, when I was working in the ad agencies and working, you know, I got to the point where I reached probably I'd say the top of the food chain, you know, in the agencies. I felt like I was doing pretty good. I was at least able to finance my fine arts career. I kept the two separate, you know, and as I was doing advertising, marketing, you know, I was painting on the side. I don't care if you bought anything from me at all, you know, because I didn't depend on, you know, selling art to do it. But the thing is that I had the business practice. And so I was just being myself. I was trying to multiply market myself where I had more than one income stream, you know, where I could get paid to talk. You know, I could get paid if I sold paintings. I could get paid if I pitched a project or did a campaign. And so, yeah, having multiple income streams was the deal. So I got invited to a creative entrepreneurship seminar in Whitewater. I got there, there were three of us. There were two other people, one from North Carolina, one from Texas that was there. They had sessions that they were giving, and we sat down for maybe a lunch break or something. And how many sessions are you doing? Oh, I'm doing one. So how many sessions are you doing? Well, I'm doing one. I was like, so I got three. Why do I have three? And so the answer to your point is like the students wanted to talk to someone, you know, about the business of art. You know, they wanted to talk to somebody who was an artist who was actually, you know, that had a business practice, because they wanted the professional career aspect of it. And so, you know, the excitement that that came from it was I was talking to like 150 students in this one auditorium, and I didn't know that the dean was there. The dean came up to me afterwards and offered me a job. That was six years later. So part of my mission really is to talk to students about the business side of art. And I think that that's why I'm here today, really, is to talk about, you know, how that connects to a career path, because you got ceramists, sculptors, painters, textile artists who don't have any idea outside of the process of making that says, how am I gonna take my skill sets and actually make money? Okay, I'm in a section of my art lectures right now talking about, during the early Renaissance and late Renaissance period when, we actually were considered craftsmen. We were the working population. We were, like on the ladder of hierarchy in terms of earned income and money. Even in the Renaissance, they were at least number 6, and they were like several cuts above the laborer because they had these specialties. And so, yes, if you were part of any one of those organizations, the stained glass guild, if you were, if you made, if you were a sculptor, Leonardo and, Donatello and all, man, they had apprentices. They weren't starving. They were doing pretty damn good. The Medicis financed them. Okay, they spent more money. Matter of fact, the Medicis was considered God's banker because they were the bank to the Vatican. Like, no, they put money in those guys' pocket. They had, huge studios, No, marble's not cheap. How you think, Michelangelo carved the Pietà, he was 24 years old. Okay, so, yeah, give me the hookup. I wouldn't mind being, I do blue chip for 2 years. So I tell them all the time that, no, think about the business of art. Have the preparedness. Do forums. That's why I was talking to Willie, like, no, document your stuff, write about your stuff, put dates on it, frame it, build your own provenance. Okay, have a track record, when you are done doing your shows, if you get any publicity, keep articles. Use those articles, package it. When you sell your work, give the package to the buyer. Create, the kind of provenance that says that person is willing to come back, or do just what you said, brag to your friends about this expensive piece that you bought. No, I don't want my work to be considered cheap. Inexpensive? Okay, I'll take inexpensive. Cheap, no. I'll even take expensive just so that it won't end up behind the couch.
Do the students go through like business plan exercises?
Well, I taught creative entrepreneurship. I did for 2 years. For the first time, we actually had business students and fine art students in the same room. So yeah, they left my class with a full-blown business plan, doing all the analyses, everything. All the discovery. So what we call MVP, or all the research, operation analysis. We did all of that. And so the business students were learning how to be creative thinkers, how to do design thinking, and all the art students were learning how to, do this, to put together a business plan with coming up with an idea, thinking of their work as products. I even had this one book that I used that was jargon for or jargon-free book for the creative entrepreneur. And we could break down the language that comes through the business. It's amazing to me how sometimes the university can break things down into these sort of silos that are constructs where they don't want to mix the business school with the art school. Finally, UWM was smart enough to have what they call an interdisciplinary program, where you can do a little bit of business. Lubar Center, I'm a fellow at the Lubar Center. That's what I do. It's part of. They found me. I didn't find them.
When did that come in
The Lubar Center. Oh, interdisciplinary practice. Probably about maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
I got my undergrad
Yeah.
10 years ago, and I minored in business,
Yeah.
I majored in art history.
But they never put the two together?
No, and they still, I don't
No,
see
they don't want,
it.
no, they basically, and, I don't wanna be speaking out of turn or, making any enemies, anything like that, but, to me, it was all about profitability. It was like, okay, you keep the business school separate from the fine art school, and the creative thought, that took place in the art school was totally different than, even the language that was used in the business department was not even meshed with, you being a painter or you're being a sculptor. It just didn't happen that way. But now, you think about what's happening across the country, as the job market is changing, and that's why being in this building right now in this space with the kind of attitude that Reggie has with, okay, hell, I painted. Okay, so no, now it's time to punt. Okay, but you did all kinds of things. I mean, you know, it's like you keep evolving, you keep working, you keep doing things until, you know, something works, but you try to build a career for yourself, you try to do it. So in some cases, like what I see you doing is kind of like what I did, and, you know, it's just in reverse. You know, so, and that's not to slight you or anything, but it's just to say that, you know, I started out doing graphics. It got to a point where, no, I wanted the organic, I wanted the painting career, I wanted to do that too. I wanted to build a reputation of being a fine artist. I created the systems. I have a cost matrix. I don't have to guess about how much my work costs. I know what it costs. To produce it, I know how much it costs, you know. The thing is selling it and selling it consistency at the rate that, you know, yeah, sure, I would love to do 5 paintings a year. I would love to. At 50,000 a pop. I would love to, but that doesn't always happen.
I have a question to ask you. You working in the commercial art field, how did the business side of that influence how you look at the fine
Yeah,
art?
okay, cause,
fine art?
yeah, I'm gonna tell you, like, we would deal with clients. Clients came to us to produce their campaign, their ads, their commercials, both radio and, magazine or any, what we call communications. So we design all their communications, and so we build everything. Phone calls, I mean, I would be on the phone, I had a whole laundry list of billing codes. And when you do that stuff every day, you know, on the phone with the client for 2 hours of nothing but just admin time. Okay, I was on the phone with the client, or a client come in the office, I spend 2 or 3 hours of concepting, 4 hours of, you know, and so you build up that, and that became a practice. And so that's how I was able to create these price matrices and be able to price my work and then organize. I wrote my own contracts. Okay, proposals, things like that.
I'll just offer, for people who are leaving school or out of school now, or at a point where they're thinking about the business of what they're doing, there's a lot of resources in the community that will help you. So, I mean, there's some in the arts community, of course, Marg and others.
Yeah.
I work for the Small Business Administration, a federal agency that helps small businesses, and we have a lot of partners that do free mentoring and counseling. Artists are a business. You can access those things as well, and it is for free. I think where sometimes there's a challenge, is that, you know, artists have their own way of thinking and approaching things, and I think in some ways that can be an artificial line, and in some ways it's true. Your business has a particular flavor to it, and sometimes that's very individual because you're designing it. Like, you have this beautiful choice, you've made the choice and the luxury of making your business what you want it to be. Unlike, you know, somebody who maybe is making widgets, or it's a little different mindset. So when you go and you talk to some of these people, they maybe don't have experience working with artists, so you might have to be, it might be a little bit of, like, you're like, okay, I need to figure out how I'm gonna make money, you know, how I'm gonna eat, and also how am I gonna have this creative business situation. So they have tools that can help you, and you might end up doing some education of the person that's mentoring you on what that is. And I think there's also, sometimes there's people who are a good fit to work with and sometimes not, so you might end up having to shop around a little bit. I've been trying to put together, Kayla and I've been like, you know, trying to put our heads together from time to time and talk about this and how we can have more resources available that are artist friendly in the community. So I have building slowly just a list of people around, not just in Milwaukee, but in Wisconsin, who have mentored artists and who, you know, have had success at that. So it's a slow process, but it's happening.
It's an uphill climb. But part of what I was doing, I was just looking at the creative industry study that was done, you know, several years ago, where you know, who was it, the Creative Alliance actually hired, Michael Kane to do a Milwaukee study, spent $100,000 on this study. And, you know, I was looking at now, part of what they did to include the artists in that sort of breakdown, that you talk about, creative industries as a pie.
Right.
You know, we represented 11% of the pie, maybe 12% was performing arts. But somewhere between 46 and 49% of the market was really the commercial industry, the ones that they refer to as creatives. Okay, so are you creatives or are you an artist? Okay, so we don't actually rank, you know, as among the list of creatives. If we, our 11% is actually counted up under artists, but mostly associated with arts organizations. So you start thinking about the, and this is really, it struck me hard because, you know, people always talk about, you know, arts spending per capita. You know, so that art spending per capita, you know, really breaks down to per person. We're 48 on the list of all 50 states, and so our arts spending per capita, okay, you can't put 13 cents and get a bubble gum. Okay, you can't, but that's what it's worth. So 13 cents per person, that's art spending. So on the federal side of what's getting allocated to the state of Wisconsin is probably what, 700 and maybe 90-some thousand dollars that's dispersed among all of the arts organizations. And I think by the time it trickles down to Wisconsin, it's maybe somewhere in the area of like Milwaukee Arts Board get what, 250,000 maybe? Is it that much?
It's tiny.
Yeah, so no, and a few years ago, they wanted to take 70% of that away. It's like, okay, why are we an art city? You bragging about being a world-class art city. It's like, stop saying that. If you can't put your money where your mouth is, stop saying that. I remember going to the city hall and actually going and pitched right in front of the alderman and everything and told them the same thing. It's like, no, you need to stop saying it. Either you retain the funding or stop, or take this world-class city out of your brochures. Don't even say it. You know, and I was standing there, it's like, yeah, Tom, you were the one that appointed me on this board, talking to the mayor. Used to live right down the street from me when he lived in Washington Heights. You know.
The current administration is trying to eliminate that registration completely.
Right, exactly, no, and so that money that comes from the, you know, the National Endowment for the Arts, or, you know, it's like, no, you're trying to cut that funding, so we get 790, look it up.
No, I believe you. What I'm saying is that, I mean, I hear what you're saying about arts funding on the federal level. I don't have anything to do with that.
No, I'm not blaming you.
But I hear what you're saying, but there's, I mean, it was a big eye opener for me, actually, when I started working on the business, in the business community in general. There's so many resources out there for businesses. At the federal, the state, I mean, I'm a federal agency, there's state agencies, WEDC, Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, you know how much money they have? You know how many resources
Well,
they
here,
have?
pardon me?
You know, the African American Chamber, they're a
Yeah.
nonprofit, but they, you know, they do some business advising and mentoring, they have a revolving loan fund. There's a lot of things written into laws and regulations that incentivize certain aspects of business. So if you can flip your mind around, or any, you know, artists are businesses too, I think there's that aspect of it, and what I'm saying is that there's a lot of resources out there, for people who are businesses, who are sole proprietors, of which many artists are, and that if you can approach yourself as a business and think of yourself as a business and go and pursue those resources, and I'm happy to have a conversation with anybody about that. Because, you know, people have different skills and different needs, and we see this, you know, all the time. So SCORE, which is a mentorship organization, like next door to ours, and I spend a lot of time talking to small businesses because I have a lucky aspect of my job where I have to write about them. So you talk to people and they're like, oh my God, so one woman, you know, they make of all things that help make maple syrup. She and her husband just decided they had maple trees on their land, all this, right? And they hadn't done anything, they didn't know anything about it. They started doing stuff, and, they realized that they knew a lot, like she was a marketing person, she was a creative director at an art agency. She started working on the business, and she's like, oh, I have to run this business, I don't know anything about pricing, inventory control, distribution. They were trying to build crates to put their equipment in, and they weren't working, like stuff was getting broken. So they call SCORE. They have somebody who actually knows about like internal business controls, and they got them set up with a system, and they got them connected through somebody else, again, in relationships, right? To somebody else who can help them build crates that would work for their equipment. And suddenly they had a good system. They weren't, you know, they cut their costs because they weren't getting stuff broken when they shipped it. They were able to reduce their own, you know, they outsourced their crating. So that was a cost, but it saved them a lot of money because they were able to crate their equipment. And one thing led to another, their revenue, their sales went up 20 times, times 20 from the first year to the 10th.
Well, part of the.
And those are free resources. That's what I'm saying, there's people who can help you and sit down and talk with you, and if you're like, I don't know where my strong suit is in my art, this is what I like to do, but they can help you, you know, there's people that can help you, and it's free.
Yeah, I think that we have to just be, you know, better advocates for what we do. And then, again, you know, there's a lot of businesses out there that really don't know what artists do, and they think in some cases that we're all monolithic. They think that we're all the same, and we're not. And that's that's where some of that falls off. They, you know, there was a time I remember they would say things like, well, we don't even know where, you know, where artists are, or, you know, are there any black artists? They would, you know, and that's why Abela even was formed, because, oh yeah, you don't know where we are, so it's like, okay, we're gonna have to educate the public about who we are. So that's what, it was actually in the name. African American artists, you know, beginning to educate, you know, people about African American art, right? Yeah, so essentially, that's what it was. Like, you can't find us, right? Sure you can. Right. But, you know, so we have to change that, you know, so that, you know, it's not so hard to find us, but when they do find us, they need to know what we do. You know, what I do is different than what Willie does. What, you know, what I do is different than what Amar does. And sure, there's some overlap. You know, there's things that, yes, we can do. We share some common interests, but, you know, we're not all the same. You know, we shouldn't be treated the same. But one of the things that we got to do to elevate, you know, our abilities is to, you know, package ourselves and be ready to do business with those corporations and be able to, you know, defend ourselves with the work that we are making.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I had to look at you because I know you was like,
That's my job, right?
it's like you are just like talk radio.
It's a topic worth staying away for and talking about, you know, everyone's interests.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming out. Thank you guys for such participation and showing up.